and welcome to the Culture War, where we dissect and dismantle pop culture in all its forms. The first trailer for the upcoming Harry Potter streaming series on HBO just released, and it definitely has people talking. Now, some have noticed the dull color palette, others have commented on the apparent attention to detail, but one thing almost everyone noticed was a certain controversial casting decision with dark skin and dreadlocks. Will the unexpectedly comprehensive trailer succeed at building excitement for the new series, or is this thing bound to be dead on arrival? Join us as we discuss the new Harry Potter trailer. But first, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and help us grow the channel. As always, it really means a lot to us. And don't forget to like and share the video if you enjoy the content. Now, without further ado, let's get into it.
The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. It's not always clear why. But I think it is clear that we can expect great things from you.
You sure about that?
As a very quick recap, let me just say that I love Harry Potter. I've read the books multiple times, including reading them to my children, and we've seen the movies countless times, and we love the movies. One of the only real gripes that we had was that due to time limits, they had to cut out a bunch of material from the books, especially in later installments. Some great characters and plot lines were simply deleted from the films, and fans of the books noticed, although we ultimately understood. So there has always been a contingent of the fandom that hoped they would eventually redo the live-action adaptation in a longer form so as to faithfully recreate the stories from the books. And when HBO announced this show a few years ago and promised a faithful adaptation, fans like myself were excited. This is what we wanted, a faithful adaptation.
You liar!
However, as I discussed in my previous video, as production began to ramp up, rumors began to circulate that they were taking liberties with the source material, talking about expanding the stories and seeing things from a different perspective, instead of the whole story being seen through Harry's point of view, which would fundamentally change the story. But of course, nothing could change the story more than the boneheaded decision to cast Papa Acedo as Snape, which was one of the first rumors to propagate.
Oh, no.
And of course, the backlash has been pretty severe, with most people complaining about how he looks nothing like Snape, either from the books or the movies. Fans, regardless of their political leanings, have just rejected the idea of a black Snape. Not only does it threaten to change the story, but it fundamentally clashes with their expectations for the character. See, fans have a clear picture of Snape in their minds, and this casting massively departs from that, to the point that it's jarring and uncomfortable. Papa Acedo himself was recently interviewed and he talked about the backlash, claiming that he's received death threats for playing Snape. Now, I don't think we've seen screenshots of these death threats, so I'm going to take that claim with a grain of salt, but I am willing to take him at his word simply because I know that everyone on the internet gets death threats. It's one of the defining traits of the internet. If you've ever voiced an opinion online, someone has threatened to kill you for it. Anyway, no one should be threatening anyone for taking a job, period. That's wrong, and I condemn the people issuing such threats. However, as for non-violent vitriol, I'm sorry, but that is a right of the fans. We are allowed to tell you how bad we think your creative decisions are. And certainly anyone involved in this decision should have known it was going to cause controversy and backlash. So my sympathy is tempered in that regard. And I don't blame the actor himself. He was offered a job and took it. I understand that. Everyone should understand that. The decision to cast him came from above. And that's who all of the hate should be directed to. So the death threats aside, obviously you shouldn't be receiving death threats. It's actually what he said in conjunction with that kind of has me worried. All right, so we're just going to quickly look at this article. Harry Potter star says he received death threats. Harry Potter actor Papa Acedo says he received race-fueled death threats over his casting as Professor Snape in the upcoming HBO Max adaptation. I've been told, quote, quit or I'll end you. And then he says, it really matters. The reality is that if I look at Instagram, I will see somebody saying I'm going to come to your house and kill you. So while I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be murdered, that could age badly. But yes, while I hope I'll be okay, nobody should have to encounter this for doing their job. I agree. Many people put their lives on the line in their work. I'm playing a wizard in Harry Potter, and I'd be lying if I said it doesn't affect me emotionally. But then this is the part that worries me. So then he says, but the abuse fuels me. Quote, it makes me more passionate about making this character my own because I think of how I felt as a kid. I would imagine myself at Hogwarts on broomsticks, and the idea that a kid like me can see themselves represented in that world, that's motivation to not be intimidated by someone saying they'd rather I died instead of doing work I'm going to be really proud of. All right, first of all, what the hell are you talking about? There are black people in the Harry Potter books and movies. So saying that now you can see yourself on the screen because they race swapped one of the characters? That's just bullshit. Either you didn't read the books or watch the movies, or you're just lying. Anyway, the other part, the more troubling part, is when he says he wants to make this character his own. That is a problem. That's not what fans want. We want to see Snape, Severus Snape, as envisioned and described by J.K. Rowling, not Papa Isidu's or anybody else's interpretation of Snape. Anyway, before we go any further down the rabbit hole, let's take a look at the trailer.
I told you. You are a normal boy. And you're going to start acting like one. You think you're something special? There is nothing special about you.
So right out of the gate, it looks like they're going to be showing a lot of Harry's home life, which is good. They kind of had to speed run through that in the movies. This way they're going to show more of his backstory that, he's abused at home by the Dursleys, he's bullied by Dudley in school. But first, I just don't think the Dursleys look right. I mean, we barely saw Vernon, but he seems too small, just like a regular-sized guy. And Petunia is supposed to be a horse-faced, uppity, nosy neighbor, not a white trash mean girl. Also, the dialogue that she adds is not in the book, and it doesn't really make sense. So first she tells Harry he's a normal boy and should act like one. They never called him normal. They always called him abnormal. They wanted to hide him away from people because he wasn't normal. And then saying that he thinks he's special, Harry never thought he was special. Now I know it's just more of them showing their abuse, but you didn't need to add any more of that. There was plenty in the books about the Dursleys being abusive to Harry. So I'm not sure about that.
I've always wanted to know about my parents.
Your parents were the kindest, bravest people I ever met. They were funny and clever. And they stood up for what they believed was right. The next time I see you...
All right, Nick Frost, I always thought he was a good choice for Hagrid, but I don't know, I think they kind of missed the mark. First, he looks too thin. His face does. Some folks are calling him Ozempic Hagrid. But if you can get past that, his voice is still way off. It's too soft, too quiet. Hagrid is supposed to be loud and gruff, not soft-spoken and timid. Also, I just want to talk about the score. Hans Zimmer, I think, does the score. It's just too dreary. I guess it goes with the dull and washed-out color palette, which is another thing I think they got wrong. At least in the early seasons, that should be a lot brighter and more whimsical. All right, let's keep going.
We'll be in Hogwarts.
Mr. Potter.
So some of these sets look pretty good. Like the train and Hogsmeade Station. The castle seems okay. We get our first look at McGonagall, who looks, well, I think she looks too young.
I think we can expect great things from you.
Draco he almost looks too old. Oh well, it's not that big a deal. He otherwise looks like Draco, he looks like Draco in the third year, not first year. Ollivander looks great, the castle looks okay, a little darker than I'm accustomed to, but anyway, let's keep going.
Let's see who you are.
So we only get to see him for a second, but here's our first look at Black Snape. And of course they gave him dreadlocks. I don't know what I was expecting. Now, if you didn't know anything about this series, and you only knew the books and the movies, you would have no idea who that was supposed to be, right? All right, we'll talk more about him in just a minute.
Are you really Harry Potter?
That's surprising. Christmas 2026, that seems a little earlier than I had expected. I was thinking it was going to be like spring of next year. All right, anyway, so Dumbledore looks good. I mean, he looks like Dumbledore. I've always approved of John Lithgow's casting. I think he looks the part. Of course, I am concerned about his age. If this show actually takes them 10 years to finish, he's going to be 90 years old in the last season. I just don't think that was smart, especially considering later in the series, Dumbledore has to look fierce and physical. Can an 87-year-old John Lithgow pull that off? I'm not sure. So anyway, that's it. I mean, it looks okay. There are parts of it look really great. Others look kind of cheap and underwhelming. Some people online are calling it Temu Harry Potter. I think that kind of captures at least parts of it. And it goes for the cast too. I mean, again, the kids are fine, I guess. Harry seems a little soft, but he's fine. He's fine. He's a kid. Hermione looks fine too, and Ron just seems off somehow. And that might just be my bias toward Rupert Grint, who was probably the best cast child actor in the movies. And I get it, this was always going to happen. The show was always going to suffer, at least in the first season or two, assuming it gets greenlit past the first season or two, by constant direct comparison to the original films. And after seeing this trailer, the comparisons may not be as generous as they had hoped. The sets, the costumes, cinematography, the tone, the music, all look way better in the first Harry Potter movie than in this trailer. But most of all, it's the actors. Specifically the adult actors. They were simply legendary. I mean, you had Richard Harris and Maggie Smith, Robbie Coltrane, Jonathan Hurt, and the late great Alan Rickman as Snape. And that brings us to Black Snape. One of, if not the dumbest casting decision in history. Make no mistake, Papa Acedu didn't get the role because he was the best actor for the job. Even though I'm sure he's a great actor, there are almost certainly 1,000 other actors who are at least almost as good as Papa Acedu, who actually looked like the character. No, this was an intentional decision, not a creative one, with no regard for the story or the skill of the actor. Some people decided that they needed a black person in the main cast because there were too many white people. There is a word for that. It's, Let me make it very clear for the online woke brigade who still apparently refuse to read the books or acknowledge what countless others have already pointed out. That while most of the characters in the books admittedly were never explicitly described by their race, it was almost always heavily implied. In fact, because of the way several characters were described as being black or Asian or Indian, it was implied that the characters who weren't so described were white, as it would have made sense that in a school located in the UK in the early 1990s that most of the children were white. But putting aside the obvious deduction, for people who obviously lack the capacity for deductive reasoning, Snape in particular was clearly described as a white guy multiple times. He had greasy black hair, a hooked nose, and sallow skin. A sliver of a man with long black hair parted in curtains around a sallow face and black eyes. Snape's sallow skin had gone the color of sour milk. Snape's face was like a death mask. It was marble white. Harry Potter said that he did not know what he felt as he saw Snape's white face. Over and over, he was described as being this sallow-faced, pale, hook-nosed, greasy black-haired, unattractive white guy. And I don't know what else to say. This is just, it's stupid. It was a decision to race swap a major character, and they knew what they were doing. Maybe they did it to get people talking? I don't know. It seems to me that this can only be a negative for the show. First, there's no way that this decision is going to lead to a better product, because it wasn't meant to. Second, any fans of Harry Potter are going to be put off by the decision because he's just so obviously not Snape, and you risk alienating those fans. And anyone who would applaud a decision like this are likely people who hate J.K. Rowling and would never watch the show anyway. So how did they think this was going to help the show? I mean, in the entire trailer, there's only about a 1 to 2 second clip of Black Snape, yet that is almost all anyone is talking about. And most of it, I hate to say, is not positive feedback. That can't be good, right? While the trailer hasn't been ratioed yet, there are a shocking number of downvotes, and the ratio seems to be getting steadily worse over time. Is that what they wanted? Oh well. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't at least acknowledge the one good thing that comes from Black Snape, and that's the memes. I mean, these are glorious, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty more to come. Internet, do your thing. Anyway, here's the problem I have with Black Snape and all the other little details that seem different from the books. When they first announced this show, and several times after, they stated explicitly that this would be a faithful adaptation of the books. There was an acknowledgement that the movies, while great and beloved, weren't able to capture the full magic of the books, and thus a streaming series could really flesh out these stories as originally intended. And fans of the series were excited about the concept, because there was so much stuff that we loved missing from the movies. So that's what the fans wanted, a faithful adaptation. Stick to the books. Give us all those wonderful, nerdy details. We would forgive some downgrading of the acting talent that was unavoidable in exchange for fidelity to the source material. But if you weren't going to be faithful, and you were going to make just another reinterpretation of a beloved work, why would we even bother? The movies and books do still exist after all, and it hasn't been that long since the last one released. So I asked this before, who the hell are you making these shows for? Just having one of the most iconic characters being completely different from what we expect is enough to throw the whole thing into doubt. But toss in these other changes and additions and actors claiming they're going to make the characters their own, and this thing is sounding less and less like a faithful adaptation and more like another stupid retelling of a classic story for a modern audience. And I can tell you, if that's the case, while you may get some interest in newcomers who will watch simply to own the haters, and undoubtedly some of the fans who will watch anything with the Harry Potter name on it, you're also certainly going to lose a substantial number of us who are discerning in our tastes. And that sucks. I really wanted this show to be good. I wanted them to actually adapt Rowling's stories the way she intended. This show was never going to replace the original movies. It was meant to supplement them with the detail and precision that we missed in those classic films. But if the tone is completely different, the characters are terribly miscast, and the story is fundamentally changed by zealous writers and actors and producers, then I'm guessing I won't be the only Harry Potter fan to skip this thing entirely. What did you think of the new Harry Potter trailer? Was Black Snape a clever twist or the dumbest casting decision ever? Join the conversation in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Bye for now. We hope to see you next time in the Culture Ward.